Hi, this is Rob Packard from Medical Device Academy. This video is a brief explanation of what you get when you purchase our Control of Records procedure. That's SYS-002. We have a lot of procedures on our website. I'm actually showing the actual page on this video here. It's a video from our UDI requirements procedure. I'm actually going to be replacing that on this page with this video that I'm recording right now. But this video will walk you through what you get when you purchase the SYS-002 procedure. Down here, it lists two of the things you get. You get the Control of Records procedure, and you get the record destruction form. But in addition to that, you get a webinar on good documentation practices, the native slide deck to it, and an exam. It's a 10-question quiz, multiple choice and fill in the blank, to verify your training effectiveness on the GDP 101 webinar, which is good documentation practices, which includes document and record control. So I'll take you to the procedure first. Actually, I'll show you the email first. So when you purchase it, you're going to receive an email like this. And I can show you how you get that email real quick. Right here, it says your card is empty, but if you click down here on Add to Cart, now you can pay by PayPal or with a credit card. And if you decide you want to change your mind, you close that. But once you've purchased it with PayPal, then you will receive an automated email. There's a verification that you want to subscribe and receive the information, so we're not spamming you. And you will receive this email, and it says, here's what's attached: the procedure, the form, the exam in native Word format. And then you also get a link to download the recording of the webinar and a link to download the recording of a link to download the slide deck from the webinar as well. And then if you're interested in other procedures, we have a Control of Documents procedure and all our procedures on that page. First, we'll go to the procedure. So this is the fourth draft that we've made. When you purchase this, you're going to make your own edits to it. If you purchase individual procedures, you change the company name to your company name, you change the logo to your logo, and you eliminate these drafts because you're going to actually have them as part of your quality system. You can adopt this when you're in the middle of revisions prior to approving a draft or prior to approving a version. But the first revision of your quality system procedures will be revision A. You can replace the author with your name instead of mine. And here's what goes into the record control. All the parts of the quality management system have records and data control that are required. I used to call the procedure record and data control procedure, but now it's called Control of Records because that's what most people would expect to call it, because that's what it's called in the ISO standard. And then there's also an output of this process. It's a record destruction form when you no longer are keeping records. You don't have to have these two titles, but these are two positions or responsibilities in your quality system. One to control the records and another to control your quality system. They could be one and the same person, though. You can also change those titles to fit your organization. Things that we've updated in the procedure: we've added the requirement for the European Medical Device Regulation, the new regulation that takes effect next May, to require records to be held for 10 years. If you have an implant, that would be 15 years. And then we've also added other requirements from 1345, identifying where the medical device files will be and what the contents of those are. The requirement for protection of confidential health information, and a requirement to prevent deterioration of loss of documents. That could be in your document control procedure or your record procedure. It's in the clause under document control, but this is where most people think of protection of records and retaining records. And you really want to handle records, documents, and data in the same way. You want to make sure they can't be deteriorated or lost. So I indicate here, this is what we changed and why we changed it. And then you would put in the date that you're approving the procedure, and the DCN is the document change notice, which is a form from the document control procedure, the year that the change is made, and then a sequential number that you put in a log. It describes the roles and responsibilities, And then it goes to the details of the procedure. In this record maintenance section, there's a flow chart. It just gives you a place to put in where you're going to store your records. That could be a physical location, it could be electronic location, it could be both. So you're going to update that yourself. That's why I have it in red. I don't know where you're going to put it personally. Also, you need to decide whether you're going to have data that's electronic or everything's going to be paper-based, and what kind of security controls and backup and validation you're going to have for cybersecurity prevention, as well as a recovery system. Some companies will call it a business continuity plan, particularly if they're a public company, they're required to have one. We have minimum retention requirements. You're typically going to want to create a record retention form or table, and it's going to list all your records, and you're going to want to indicate when the record retention period begins and ends for each of those documents. But because every company is different on what documents and records they're going to have, we haven't created that for you. But it's really important to think about when the record is going to start retention and when it's going to end retention. And we cover that a little bit more in the GDP 101 procedure. But for instance, if you have a training record for an employee, just because it's been 5 years or 10 years, if the employee is with the company for 15 years, you don't want to start deleting records because they still work for the company, and you might not need new records for training. You might not need to retrain them on certain things. So within training records, you're going to start deleting them 10 years after the employee no longer works for the company. For something that's a DHR, it's going to be 10 years after the production lot is actually expired. And then if you're doing a design history file, it'll be 10 years after the product's no longer on the market. If you have a piece of equipment, you keep the maintenance records 10 years after you no longer have the equipment. So you got to keep in mind what is the trigger for beginning the retention periods. This particular section, monitoring and measurement, is a little different. A lot of companies don't have this in their procedures. We put it in every procedure because you're required to do monitoring and measurement of all your processes, and control of records is a process. So there are two things here. Number one, you're going to do monitoring and measure the process through internal audits and trending of audit findings. But here's the thing that you probably haven't thought of. Somebody should be reviewing records when they collect them from the production floor, and they should be reviewing them before they file them. You should always review your records as a supervisor or manager before you file them. If you find something wrong with them, you should correct it, or even better, hand it back to the person that made the error and have them correct it. But don't stop there. Actually keep a record of it. And the purpose of this isn't to keep track of who made the most mistakes. That's really not going to help you. Most of the time, the problem isn't with the employee, the problem is with the form itself. So keep track of what mistakes people are making the most, and use that as sort of your priority list, or this is the form that people that make the most mistakes with, this is the part of the form they make the most mistakes with, let's revise the form. Maybe it's an area where people are constantly illegible and crossing things out. Maybe the order of the form needs to be changed, maybe they need more space, maybe they just need more training. But you should definitely look at the trends of errors and analyze that to determine when you need to redesign something or retraining is needed. And so that's an actual value-added quality objectives you could have based on monitoring and measurement of record errors. And then we have some more training and retraining requirements here. As a risk-based quality system, we try to have risk involved in every single procedure. So we try to identify some hazards involved in the process. So these would be errors or use errors that would occur in following this procedure. And then what controls that we put in place. And you may think of some additional ones yourself. If you have an electronic system, you could add those. And then the only record we really have here is a destruction record, that you got to keep your destruction records forever. So that's what's included in the procedure. Now I'm going to go on to the destruction record. So this is actually the destruction record here, and you're going to fill this in every time you destroy a record because it's hit its record retention period. You indicate what the record is, the range of period. So it could be, I'm going to destroy all of 2013 records of this type, whoever's approving it, and then the person that actually deleted it, or if it's electronic, or archived it. The next thing I think we have here is an exam. So here's just a little glimpse at the exam. As you can see, they're pretty simple and straightforward. True, false, multiple choice, fill in the blank. And then you send those back to us in Word format. We correct them and send you back a training certificate and the corrected exam. And you also are going to get this webinar. So I'll just walk you through sort of the slides here. You can see on the left-hand side, we have 28 different slides, but here's an example of very poor record keeping where you scribble it all out and you can't see what somebody wrote there before. You're not supposed to use whiteout. We cover that. Don't store your records like this, things like that. So that's what we cover in this webinar. And so if you purchase the procedure, you get the procedure, that form, the exam, the training webinar, and we have a complete quality system. So the next webinar I'm going to be recording here very shortly, a video, is going to be on our total quality system as a turnkey quality system. So if you're interested in more like this, check that out as well. Thank you. Have a great day.